Hey guys, Happy New Year. I hope you've started off 2018 most excellently. I personally started off the new year with a severe bout of food poisoning. So the only counting down that I was doing on New Year's Eve was counting down 15-minute intervals before going to the bathroom. On the plus side, if you want a New Year's diet plan where you lose 3 kilograms in 1 week, have I got the plan for you. On a bit of a serious New Year's PSA, if you are young, like me, and in Australia, like me, and you bought private health insurance to avoid paying the government's lifetime health cover loading penalty, and you bought a cheap insurance cover, find out what's actually covered under that policy, under the hospital part of that policy, and do not find out like I did, which is to show up at the emergency room of a hospital with severe dehydration and just a little bit of blood in your vomit and be told that your health fund won't actually pay for you to stay overnight on an IV drip. Check that out. If you do have private health insurance, make sure you're actually getting what you think you're paying for. Okay, so that aside, we're going to come to the main subject of today's video, which is to introduce the Mammon Machine! So Mammon is a god of greed. And in the game Chrono Trigger, which is one of my favorite games of all time, a society of mages builds a machine that they use to harvest the dark energies of an evil entity known as Lavos. And they harvest that energy to power their civilization. And they call that machine the Mammon Machine. And as you can probably guess, it all goes horribly wrong for them and their entire society plunges into the sea. So I thought Mammon Machine was an appropriate name for a computer that will be used to mine cryptocurrencies on the side. I mean, I'll be doing other things like video editing and gaming, but just a little bit of world-destroying crypto mining as well. So I'm not going to give you a full rundown of all the parts in this build because I did that in a previous video, though some parts have changed now that I've put it all together. But I thought it might be nice if I could give you some of my notes and some of the things that I learned while I was putting together everything for this computer, just in case you were looking to do a similar sort of build. I have to say, remarkably little blood was shed in the construction of this computer, so I'm just feeling a little bit proud of my success in those terms. Though perhaps the food poisoning was a punishment for a failure to comply with the terms of the blood ritual. So let's take a look. So if you recall, for my case, I went with the Coolermaster MasterCase Pro 3. And now that I've had some time to play around with it, to work with it, I have to say I'm really happy with my choice. Because number one, I like the way the case looks. I like that kind of industrial, angular kind of finish on the case. And I also really love the handles because it makes it so much easier to maneuver and to move around and work with. I have to say I also really like the way cable management works with this case because most of it gets routed behind the kind of rubber openings here into the back of the case or into the PSU cubby, and then once you put the window up you can't see most of the cables. So I've tried hard to maintain a really clean look to the case. I'm pretty chuffed with how it looks. I've tried to maintain a color scheme with all my part selection of black, gray and purple, and I think it looks pretty cool. Now I'll go through some of my notes for the parts in this case just to tell you a bit about what I've learned, and we'll start with the motherboard. Now I went with the Asus Z370G Strix motherboard, and I think it's an alright motherboard, but one big disappointment I found out in the course of setting this all up is that while this motherboard supports Aura Sync lighting, which is Asus's own scheme for synchronization of RGB lighting between different components, unfortunately, the motherboard doesn't actually have any RGB headers on the motherboard itself. So let's say if you have some RGB fans like the fans on this Coolermaster CPU cooler, there's no way to actually plug them in on the motherboard to control the RGB lighting with, even if it's Aura Sync compatible. And that's a real disappointment because it means that I can't actually change the CPU lighting except with the included hardware remote. The only thing therefore that is compatible is something like an Asus GPU that you plug into, or USB devices, I guess, that support Aura Sync. So that's a bit of a disappointment. Now, as far as the CPU fan goes, you can tell I actually went with a different setup than the 212X. There was nothing wrong with the 212X. I actually had it installed and the temperatures were fine for my purposes. But the thing is, originally I started off thinking, I'm probably not really going to need that many LEDs in this case. And then when I all set it up, I thought, I want some more LEDs. So I went out and ordered a Coolermaster A610P, which has these kind of RGB fans here, and now everything's got a very cool kind of purple glow, and you know, I like it. As far as the video card goes, you can see that I no longer have the Asus Strix GPU, because I found out, and as many of you pointed out in the comments, as soon as I plugged it in, I realized this. The Asus cooler on their 1080 Ti was a 2.5 slot solution, which meant that it would block off the third PCIe slot here, which meant that I could not install a second graphics card, a second 1080 Ti if I so wanted to, which was always on the cards for this computer, no pun intended. So I changed it to an EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti as the RGBs, so hopefully inform you. This is for the Win 3 edition of the card. These kind of names are all very cringeworthy to me, but this is one of the nicer 2-slot cards that you can get. It's a little noisier than the Asus just because they've had to go with a smaller kind of heatsink solution in volume, but it's still all right. I found with this particular card, if the fans go below 40% of maximum speed, they start to produce a kind of annoying whir to them. So that's the one bad thing I have to say about this card. Otherwise, it seems very well made, and from all the reviews I read, it's actually over-engineered in terms of the power delivery and the way that that's all stabilized. So that's sort of nice to know. So in terms of case cooling, I went with those Corsair ML140s that I had in the earlier video, and I've been very happy with them. They don't make much noise at low velocities. And I went with another pair here for the exhausts. And I've been able to produce, through fan profiles, a fairly quiet computer. Even at full load, it's just about as loud as the iMac that I used to have under full load, and the temperatures are lower. So I'm pretty pleased with myself. I went with the strategy of, instead of trying to get a silent case and blocking off all the airflow with sound deadening material, I decided instead I'm going to go for a very high unobstructed airflow and then run all the fans at a low velocity. And I think that's probably better for the components long term. And I think I've done pretty well. So as always, let me know what you think. I'm going to be using this machine to edit videos, including the one that you're watching right now on DaVinci Resolve, and I'm going to let you know how that goes as well. Let me know what you think, and also let me know what you want to see for the new year. And if you like what I do and you want to keep it going through the new year, hop on over to patreon.com/LachlanLikesAthing, and there you can help support the channel and you can join our amazing Discord server. Anyway, Happy New Year. I hope you've had, or you are having, a wonderful holiday, and I'll see you later. Bye!